Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another video and update. So today's update is going to be a little bit interesting because I want to talk about something that is actually very important to talk about, and it's really going to be about the Russian and Ukraine war that's happening right now over there. Because I think the story, aside from the fact that it's obviously very serious and obviously huge breaking news right now, is that most people have probably already seen the news to know what is happening there. We all know that, officially there's explosions, there's tanks, people are leaving, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening. But in today's video, I want to take maybe an even deeper dive to talk a little bit about why it's actually physically happening and the motivation behind it. The obvious surface answer is that we know Vladmir Putin is probably trying to rebuild the Soviet Union and the USSR, so because of that reason, he wants to basically take over Ukraine. But then the follow-up question really becomes, well, even if he, let's just say, takes over Ukraine, right, which, let's hope, prayers, for freedom and all that, but even if he does actually take over Ukraine, then the question becomes, now what? What is he exactly going to do, or what is his ultimate motivation that I think he is not fully talking about right now? And that is what we are going to be talking about in today's video. Stay tuned. So we're going to get right to it, but as always, real fast, 10 seconds before we begin. If you guys hopefully enjoy videos like this, consider smashing the like button, consider subscribing for videos similar to this. We are actually much more, I do know, a finance, economic based, channel, stimulus unemployment. But of course, as news revolves, occasionally if there is something very important, we hope to share it. So consider subscribing, or you guys can watch to the end and then just maybe consider or see if you guys hopefully enjoy stuff like this. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, maybe personal thoughts about what you guys currently think about this situation, or by the end of this video, because I think it is a very interesting and very important topic to really understand, because the potential world is now going to get involved. So that being said, let's get this video started. So the story to really what's happening right now is that for many years and generations of years, there has obviously been a lot of conflict that has happened between Ukraine and Russia. The background story, maybe we will make another future video, so definitely consider subscribing. Although there's a lot of other videos, of course, out there, so you guys can check that out. But one of the biggest things that's happening right now is really about just simply put, government and beliefs. The story is that obviously you have Ukraine, which is very pro-democracy, and then you also have Russia, which is very pro, I guess, authoritarian, because they want to basically become the ultra power. But the story is that right now what they're very afraid of, and this really comes, I guess, to the first motivation that he's trying to have, is to really prove why authoritarian, or that way of governing, is ultra powerful. Because if they see Ukraine become, let's just say, a very successful country, right? And they obviously follow a democratic way of running, then what this is really going to show is that it's going to challenge a lot of the people in Russia to maybe think, well, look how successful they are, right? Doing, all their democratic, democracy, the way that they're running their government. Maybe now it's time for them to also break free. So maybe the most perfect analogy to this is, think a little bit like if you're in a school setting. And I know, there's a very wide age range. So again, that's why it's always great to hear personal opinions about this. But if, let's say, you're in a school setting, and this actually technically can even apply in things like the workforce, basically any environment where you kind of have someone that's like an ultra power. What ends up happening is you sometimes end up having a situation where what they really want to do is that to show their power, they want to essentially evoke fear among everyone that's around them. So if you're a school bully, you probably want to try to overpower all of the people around you. But then the story is that what's to say if, let's say, one of the people that you used to bully, attack, or do whatever you did, or maybe that's in the workforce, breaks free and now ends up very successful. Maybe they now end up thriving and flourishing. What this is going to do is that it's going to convince a lot of the other people that are being bullied right now to now potentially try to join them and think, wow, look at them, they're standing up for themselves, maybe it's time we do the same. And if that ends up happening, what is going to happen is that the bully, or in this situation, Russia, or if we're talking about the workforce, many bosses, just any kind of world power or just power figure in any kind of environment, is going to be challenged, and potentially their power or their position is going to be on the line. And that is the first reason why they're really trying to do what they are doing. It's really to challenge the democracy that's happening there right now. Now, the second reason why this is really happening is really going to follow everything that we just mentioned, and it's really going to be all about the geography. Because the story is that if you were to look at the Russian just map in general, one of the things about Russia is that even though they are such a huge, giant, powerhouse country, it's that it's because of the geography, because they border so many different countries. What this really means is that it's very, very easy for, obviously not easy per se, but easier for a lot of potential countries, especially if they all wanted to unify together. In this situation, NATO. That's probably the biggest, union of countries that they're really afraid of, to potentially now come into their country. And because when you have a country that's like dead center in the middle, and there are so many countries surrounding on the southern area, what ends up happening is that you can potentially have a lot of countries try to enter in. And think about how many ways, if other countries really wanted to conquer, just come over into their country, how many ways you can attack. You can attack from the east, you can attack from the west, the south, you can attack from the side, all of the different degrees that are around the country. You can attack from the air. So the idea is that they're really positioned right in the center. And so what they really want is that, because one of the biggest motivations to why Ukraine is such a valuable country is because, aside from the fact that they touch Russia, it's also because they're a bridge to many other countries around it. A lot of the countries that end in the word "ia", they're basically, those like small European countries, they touch Ukraine. So they essentially want to use Ukraine as a little bit of like a buffer zone, because if Ukraine is positioned there, and let's say Russia, it's the big countries right there. Obviously, it's, because you're watching on a camera, it's a little bit mirrored from what the angles from what I'm looking at. But if, let's say, Russia is over here, then what ends up happening is that if Ukraine is here, but there's so many other countries that are here, it can act as the buffer zone. So if they were to come into Ukraine, now if they were to take over Ukraine, they can now use it as a bridge to many other countries. It also means that they have an extra line of defense, so that if a lot of the other countries, let's just say for whatever reason it is, right? NATO, again, the most perfect example. If they end up coming into Ukraine, it also means now they can use the Ukraine as a little bit of like an extra defense, extra spacing for them to kind of stay distant. It's a little bit, now in this case, I guess maybe the analogy would kind of be a little bit like a chessboard. You have the king that's in the center. Imagine if, now obviously in chess, most of the time the king's actually on your far side. But the point is wherever your king is positioned on the board, ideally, because your king is the center powerhouse, what your goal is probably will be to protect the king at all cost. So wherever your king is positioned, the more pawns you can put in front and the more spacing you can have between you and the enemy, the more protective your king is. And that's really the story behind it, is because Ukraine is that extra level of spacing that they want to basically use as both a bridge and a way to guard their own country. And then probably the third final reason, there's actually technically a lot of reasons to why they want, why they specifically are so interested in trying to take over Ukraine. But maybe to just focus on the top 3 reasons, and probably the final reason we're really going to talk about to why they really want Ukraine, is probably everything related to basically what this specific channel is even about, which is basically about financials and everything related to such as like financials and even resources. Because the story is that each country, maybe not each, but many countries around the world, they kind of have a certain something that they're really famous for, or a certain resource, whether this is like materials, products, factories in that specific region, things like oil, resources, energy, gas, everything around that world. So the story really is that Ukraine is a powerhouse in its own way. Ukraine has a lot of resources, and potentially by taking over Ukraine, what they can also do is they can influence the just economy and the everything related to Ukraine, and by taking over it, now they also gain the resources that are actually there. And so through all of this, that's probably the final reason that we're going to talk about, aside from a lot of other reasons, maybe we'll share in a future video, to why they're really trying to do what they're trying to do. But really, beyond that is that that's what I really wanted to talk about in today's update, because it is relatively breaking news. I know it's a massive change from probably what we normally talk about, but as always, if you guys hopefully found that relatively insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button. If you guys haven't done so, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly anything. If you guys are watching this on release date, have an amazing, wonderful, blessed weekend, and definitely stay safe out there. And hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.